I told him I'd rather touch myself than have you pleasure me, and he lost his mind.
It's ironic how the words we speak can build or destroy everything we hold dear in an instant, often in ways we least expect. Where did it all go wrong? Why did it take losing everything for me to realize how happy and fortunate I truly was? How do I take back the words I spoke in the heat of the moment? Words that have now become a knife at my neck. If only I could return to that day, I'd stop myself from saying the very words that have left me trapped in this overwhelming sadness and emptiness. My name is Rita, and I'm in my early 30s. I married my husband Josh 6 years ago after being dumped by my lover Daniel at the time. Left with no choice, I married Josh because I was already pregnant and couldn't bear the shame of having a child out of wedlock. To make matters worse, the child's father wanted nothing to do with me and left to marry his longtime fiancée who had suddenly resurfaced. Her return shattered my world, leaving me broken and torn apart. My husband, Josh, and I have been friends since college, and his feelings for me were no secret. However, he never found the courage to confess them, and I chose to ignore it, pretending I didn't notice because I was deeply in love with Daniel. Even though I was in a relationship with someone else, Josh remained by my side as a friend. His affection for me remained unchanged. After Daniel dumped me that day, I went to Josh crying from the heartache, and I was shocked when he asked me to marry him. I already knew I was pregnant and had confided in my mom and close friends, who all advised me to marry him without revealing my pregnancy. Afraid of losing Josh too, I kept my pregnancy a secret, and I agreed to marry him. At that moment, it was the only way to save face and to gather the shattered pieces of my life. I convinced myself that any woman in my position would have done the same and that I was simply doing the right thing. I seized the opportunity and married Josh, even though I didn't love him the way he loved me. Just like that, I had successfully buried my past and given both myself and my child a chance at a new life. Things were going smoothly as I wanted, and I was happy. Josh was the sweetest husband one could ever need. He took care of me and our child, and he did his best to make sure I was very happy. Despite his demanding job that required much of his time, Josh never made me feel like he wasn't there or that I was alone. He always ensured he spent weekends with us and found time to take me and our child on vacations. He did everything he could to support us, giving me everything a woman could ever wish for. Yet why did I have to ruin it all and reopen the very wounds I had worked so hard to bury? Everything went wrong the day my daughter got really sick and I had to take her to the hospital. My husband was away on a business trip as usual, and I couldn't reach him that day. To my greatest surprise, the doctor in charge of my daughter's treatment was my ex, Daniel. I was left feeling perplexed that day as I just couldn't believe how small the world was and the possibility that we would meet again, and in that kind of way. After my daughter was admitted, Daniel tried to talk to me, but I refused to listen to him because seeing him brought back old memories. It was so overwhelming that it made me realize I still loved him. I refused to speak with him, drawing a line that we should stick to the doctor-patient relationship. I told him I was married, and so was he, and I didn't want people to get the wrong impression about us. It wouldn't be good for either of us, considering our history together. Daniel seemed to get the message, and we were doing well treating each other as strangers. My husband hurried back the moment I told him about our child's condition, and although he wanted to stay longer, he had to leave quickly as he couldn't be away for too long. But that didn't stop him from calling, both through video calls and voice calls, at every little chance he had, making it almost feel like he was right there with us. Things remained strong between us until I began to waver. I don't know why, but my thoughts started to shift. It began when my daughter's condition started improving, and I would often see her and Daniel together. They had become so close that they would spend most of the day together, and it left me feeling uneasy. He was so kind and sweet to my daughter, and most times I started to get the feeling of how happy we would have been if Daniel hadn't dumped me and chosen another lady over me. I began to picture Daniel as my husband and how sweet he and my daughter, or should I say our daughter, looked together, and at that moment, it felt so different from how it was when it was with Josh. We felt like a complete family, and I would find myself smiling each time he came around to check up on my daughter. I guess that's how I became stupid and messed up. That day, Daniel had come into the room to check on my daughter as usual when something so stupid happened. I got up to get my daughter some water since she had asked for it, and I was distracted as my attention was on Daniel, causing the glass to slip from my hand and shatter on the ground. Daniel immediately rushed over to me, pulling me to himself. For a second, my heart stopped, and it was as if something in me started burning. I hadn't felt that way in a long time, and even throughout the years I spent with Josh in our marriage, I had never felt such emotions. It all happened so easily, just from being that close to Daniel. He asked if I was hurt and okay with so much concern that my heart started to race. I felt so flustered that I immediately rushed out of the room. I had avoided Daniel all day for some foolish reasons I don't know. Later that day, my friend had visited, and I told her about the incident earlier with Daniel. She told me if I loved him that much that there was no harm trying to ignite that passion between us, especially if Daniel felt the same way for me too, and just like I fell into the trap of temptation. That day, after my daughter finished receiving her regular checkup, Daniel had informed me that she had fully recovered and could be discharged soon. Then he asked if we could have dinner together, at least once, since we might not be seeing each other again after my daughter gets discharged. It was something I was actually hoping for deep down inside of me, so I quickly accepted. So that night, I left my daughter with my mom and went out on a date with Daniel, which was such a disgusting and irresponsible thing to do as a married woman. We both had dinner that night, and we talked so much about our past. He told me about how much he regretted hurting me, and since that day, there were days he wished he could go back to that very moment and change the decision he had made that day. He told me that if only he had been bold enough to decide for himself and not follow his family's decision, maybe things would have been happier between us. Hearing his words, it was as if he had just spoken my mind. I was so overwhelmed by it that I didn't know when I kissed him. I was such an idiot, as that was the next step to my downfall. I told him I felt the same way, and that a day had not passed when I didn't think about him, and just like that we had rekindled something so forbidden, and one thing led to another, and we had sex at his apartment that night. His wife had gone on a business trip too, given the fact that she had a very big role in her family business. So coupled with my husband's absence too, we had all the freedom to go wild and unleash all we had kept inside for the past 6 years. After my daughter got discharged, our relationship did not get discharged too. Instead, it continued, and we even took it to another level. It got to a point where we started taking turns as we would display our madness in his apartment today and the next time in my husband's home. Looking back, I can't come to terms with the fact that I committed such a sinful act, all for the sake of pleasure. When my husband came back, I returned to being a faithful and loving housewife, but then I couldn't bring myself to be with my husband anymore. He suddenly felt like a stranger to me, and each time he tried to touch me, I would make up one excuse or another just to avoid him. My husband was so cool, and he never got upset. He tried to understand me and never made an issue about it. I guess that gave me more power to explore, and I started lying about going to visit my mom or a friend, but I would end up going to Daniel's. We would have fun, and then I'd return back home like nothing happened. This went on for months until my husband finally brought up the issue. He started by asking me if I was mad at him or if he had unknowingly done something to make me become distant from him lately. When I heard his questions, I felt a sense of guilt wash over me because I was well aware of how much he loved me. He loved me too much for me to treat him the way I did. I told him we were okay, and I do not have anything against him, and he did nothing wrong. He suggested that we go out on a date and try to be ourselves again. While on our date together, my husband was in front of me, but strangely, everything he tried to do for me that night just kept making me think of Daniel, and that's how I knew I had lost it. I tried to shake it off, but Daniel kept crawling back into my mind. After our date, we both went home, and we made love. Though it is shameless of me to say, that night, I made love with my husband while picturing him as Daniel, and I must admit that was the best pleasurable experience Josh and I have ever had. I tried to act normal so I wouldn't raise any suspicion, as I didn't want to lose what I had with Daniel, and I was also not ready to lose my marriage as well. I had that strong resolve until the night Daniel asked me if I would marry him if he divorced his wife. I was surprised by the question, but strangely, I wasn't upset, and then he told me he was going to divorce his wife, and if I really loved him, I'd divorce my husband and choose him. I went home that day, and Daniel's words were all I could think of, and just then, a thought crossed me. If I were to divorce Josh and marry Daniel, it felt like picking up a story that had ended years ago. I wouldn't have to live in fear that the truth about my daughter's paternity would come to light, as I would be marrying the real father of my child. And I would be putting things back to the way it was supposed to be, and just like that, I had decided to file for a divorce, and also open up to Daniel that my child wasn't Josh's, but his, and it would be a joy for us to finally be reunited. I had never once stopped to think about how that decision would hurt Josh, the one person who made my life whole again, the one person behind the strength and the reason I could survive those 6 long years in happiness. I had never stopped to think about the consequences of my actions. Instead, I immediately filed for a divorce the next day. My friends came over that afternoon, and one of them asked me about Daniel. You know how girls talk. They all giggled and laughed about how much I had been glowing lately, ever since Daniel and I started getting closer again. They even went as far as asking me about our intimate moments together and how it felt. I told them that Daniel's touch was always the best, as it brought out the wildest side of me, and we all laughed about it. One of them said she felt so sorry for Josh, that he is no doubt a sweet person, but it's just so sad he is not Daniel, and he was only there to clean up my mess at that time. I just sat there and let my friends tear my husband apart the way they liked, while they praised Daniel. I told them about my plans to divorce Josh, and I was going to tell him about it once he returned the next day. They all supported me, claiming Daniel was the right person for me, and I'm actually doing the right thing by letting Josh go. I felt no guilt at the time, which makes me feel terrible now. Why was I so convinced I was doing the right thing? How could I hurt someone who had never once hurt me, nor done anything wrong to deserve something like this? It's too late to think about all of it now because it's all hopeless. Would things have turned out differently if I had just ended my affair with Daniel? Would Josh be by my side right now? My husband Josh came home that day, and I couldn't wait to bring up the news about my decision to divorce him. But I never got the chance. This is because Josh broke the news that he had finally succeeded in his plans to move our family abroad due to his work, so we could finally be together, and he wouldn't have to be away from us anymore, as he would be closer to both his work and his family. I forced myself to smile at that moment, though I felt so torn between two people. One was Daniel, and the other was my husband. I was so confused about what to do that I hid the divorce papers and went downstairs to prepare lunch for us. I was cooking in the kitchen when Josh hugged me from behind. He tried to touch me, but I kept refusing, stating that I was too tired and busy. But he didn't stop hugging me, and I got irritated and pushed him. He stood still for a moment before finally asking me in a cold voice if that was truly the case. I should have suspected something was wrong. I should have known something was up, but instead I got upset. He asked me again if I was really tired and busy, and I lashed out at him saying, "I'd rather touch myself than let him pleasure me," if that's what he wanted to hear. To my shock, Josh grabbed the pot of the food I was preparing and threw it to the floor in a fit of rage. My eyes widened as fear gripped me. It was actually my first time seeing Josh react that way. He had always tried to remain calm and clear-headed, even when he was angry, but seeing him lose control like that left me cold and trembling. Then he began thundering. He told me he had returned home yesterday because he was overwhelmed with joy and couldn't wait to tell me about the fact that he had succeeded in getting our visas, and we could now live with him abroad where he worked, and he wouldn't need to be traveling to and fro or be away from us anymore, only for him to hear my despicable conversation with my friends. Each word he dropped followed with loud shattering from things he was smashing. Josh had completely lost it. I stood paralyzed as I didn't know how to react. He asked if Daniel was really so important to me that I'd even consider divorcing him. Immediately I heard him bring up the divorce. I knew everything was over. There was nothing more I could say or do, and all I could utter was, "I'm sorry." Josh clearly told me he wasn't an idiot and that he loved me too much. He was willing to be stupid for me, but hearing me say all that made him realize there was really no place for him in my heart, and he was just wasting his time. He told me to pack my things and leave his house, saying he didn't want to see my face and that he didn't know what he might do to me. Then just like that, he stormed out of the house. When I finally gathered my thoughts, instead of searching for my husband to plead for mercy, I rushed to Daniel's apartment, only to find out that he had left the country that night with his wife. He had completed the campaign he came for at the hospital and returned to his family. I passed out the moment I heard the news and woke up a day after. When I rushed home, my husband had already left for an emergency at the company, and he had sent my things to my mom's place. I fell to the ground wailing as I do not know where to begin from. I tried to talk to my friends, but none of them were willing to listen because they were all afraid to get involved. I feel exposed and overwhelmed by the reality of my actions. I honestly don't know what to do anymore. My husband will be back soon, and I'm terrified of how to make things right. I don't know how to appease him. I don't know how to ask for his forgiveness or if he'll ever take me back. I can't bear the thought of losing him. I feel like I'm losing my mind, and that's why I'm reaching out for help, to share my shame. I know I've made terrible mistakes and I don't deserve another chance, but everyone makes mistakes, right? I just need advice on what to do next. Please help me. Update. Is this really how life is? How is it that nothing we want ever goes as planned and it keeps surprising us in the worst way possible? It's true what they say. Nothing can ever be kept a secret forever, and one day it will come to light, one way or another. I messed up, and that was so foolish of me. I have no excuse to offer. I'm at my lowest right now, and I don't know what else to do. The thing is, on the day Josh arrived home from his trip, I had already called my mom over, knowing he would be back that day. I wanted her there to help me plead with him because I was too afraid to talk to him alone, especially after the tantrum he threw the last time we spoke before he left. When Josh arrived, I immediately dropped to my knees. But before I could say anything, he handed me the divorce papers I had prepared with my own hands. He had signed them. He told me he used his trip to think about everything, and the only decision he could come up with was to give in to what I wanted. Hearing his words felt like a knife had just been plunged into me, and as my eyes filled with tears, everything around me seemed to fade into darkness. I started begging him to please forgive me and give us another chance, but he laughed at my words and asked if there was ever a moment when there truly was an us. He continued, saying he was fully aware that I never truly had feelings for him, but believed that over time I would come to love him just as deeply if we stayed together as a couple. He admitted he had been happy during the past years, which made it all the more painful to accept the reality that those years were nothing more than a facade, an illusion that never truly existed. My mom also pleaded, but he wouldn't listen. Just when he was about to walk out on me, I immediately yelled, asking him what he was going to do about our child, that he should at least think about how our daughter would feel. I was so desperate. I didn't want to give up so easily. I was determined to try everything, even if it meant using my own daughter to save myself. But in the end, it was all in vain. Josh's face darkened the moment he heard my words. He was so furious. He walked up to me and with one hand pulled me up by my arm, gripping it so tightly that I feared it might snap. Then his words hit me. He asked how much lower I was willing to stoop, calling me nothing but a heartless person. He said I disgusted him and that he couldn't understand why he had ever been so in love with someone like me. He told me he had been willing to remain ignorant until the end for the sake of the child, but seeing me stoop so low as to use my own daughter for personal gain proved that I didn't deserve his effort. That was when he revealed that he had known all along the child was never his. My mom sank to the sofa and was short of words. Hearing Josh's words, I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. I just knew it was over for me. He went on to tell me that he found out the day I gave birth when he had hurried back from his trip only to hear my mother and I talking about it. He was hurt, but then he decided he wasn't going to use that against me as it wasn't my fault and I was also hurting. He was happy just being by my side and he was going to be patient and wait until the day I could honestly tell him the truth, but he felt he was wrong and he regrets his decision at that time. He said I was hopeless and I was never going to change, and that he never wants to see my face or have anything to do with me in this lifetime or another, and just like that, he left me, and that was the last time I saw him. I cried endlessly that day and in the days that followed, constantly asking myself why I had done all of it. I destroyed my own marriage for something that never existed. How on earth am I going to live with myself knowing fully well it's all my fault and I have no one else to blame for it? My daughter cries almost every day asking for Josh, and I break down crying each time as I don't have the answers to give her. How do I start explaining to her that her father and I are no longer together? How do I start telling her Josh isn't even her real father? How do I tell her that the very man I was cheating with happens to be her real dad? How on earth is she going to accept all that? I pray every day and wish every morning that when I open my eyes, Josh would forgive me and come back to me. Call me foolish or selfish. I'm willing to accept everything. I just need my husband back. Why did I only have to realize everything now? I wake up so afraid as I fight to accept the harsh reality that Josh is no longer my husband and is never coming back. How do I live now? I know I have to continue living for the sake of my daughter, but how am I supposed to do that when even seeing my daughter reminds me of my shameless decisions? Is there ever forgiveness for me in this life? Will I ever get better? Now I spend my remaining days in a world of questions and wishes. I deeply regret everything.
Hey Reddit, first-time poster here, but long-time lurker. My name is Mike, a 38-year-old who runs construction projects here in the heart of Columbus, Ohio. Life's been good, or at least I thought it was. You see, I've built my life the way I build my projects, with care, precision, and a blueprint for everything. My wife Emily is 36, teaches a bunch of lively first graders, and has always been the kind of person who lights up a room with her smile. We've got 2 amazing kids, a dog that's too smart for its own good, and a house that feels like it's straight out of a family sitcom. Now, I'm the kind of guy who doesn't mess around. Straight shooter, they call me. Loyalty is the foundation I've laid my life upon. I don't forgive easy, and I don't forget. Betrayal isn't just a word in a dictionary to me. It's a collapsed building that can't be put back up. But let me take you back a bit, 11 years to be exact. That was the year I proposed to Emily under the stars at the Columbus Park of Roses. She had tears in her eyes, and I knew I had the whole world in my hands. Our love. It was the kind that you didn't question, solid and supposed to last until the earth stopped turning. Now fast forward to today, or rather, a few days ago. Christmas is breathing down our necks, and I'm up in the attic searching for the decorations. It's a mess up there. Dust is a blanket over boxes we haven't touched in years. That's when I find this old flip phone tucked away in a box marked Memories 2008. Funny, I don't remember us keeping old phones as keepsakes. Curiosity has always been a friend of mine, so I think, why not see if this ancient relic still works? I find the old charger, plug it in, and the little screen flickers to life. It's like waking up a piece of the past. And boy, did the past have a lot to say. I'm not prepared for what I find. Messages that turn my sturdy world into quicksand. Hey everyone. Unfortunately, basically everyone who is watching these videos isn't subscribed. It would mean the world to me to quickly get out of the full screen video for 3 seconds and press that subscribe button. It's free, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Sorry for bothering, and thank you so much if you subscribed. They aren't to me or any family member. No, they're to someone named Dan with little hearts next to his name. My brain starts doing the math before I can stop it. 11 years ago, Emily never mentioned any Dan. So there I am, sitting in the dust and the cold with every heartbeat feeling like a sledgehammer against my ribs. I've got to know more, but not like this. Not with half-told truths from a phone that should have stayed lost. I slide the phone into my pocket, head downstairs, and plaster on a smile for the kids. But inside, I'm anything but the festive dad they see. I'm a man on a mission for the truth. And that's where I am, Reddit. Standing on the edge of what feels like a cliff, looking down into what might be the end of everything I've known. But I'm not the kind of guy who just jumps. I'm the kind who plans the descent. So I'm going to find out everything before I confront her. Because in my world, you don't accuse without proof. You don't tear down a building without knowing exactly why it's gotta fall. I'll keep you all posted. Hey Reddit, back again. It's Mike. I wish this update was to tell you all about how the phone was just a silly misunderstanding, but life's got a way of throwing curveballs that would make a major league pitcher jealous. I found that old charger, and wouldn't you know it, the darn thing actually worked. The phone came to life with that old familiar jingle like it was no different than any other day. My heart was racing, the kind of adrenaline you get when you're standing on a high beam 10 stories up with no harness. That's when I saw it. A messaging app I didn't recognize, blinking with notifications that were years past their delivery date. Reading those messages was like watching a car crash in slow motion. They were from Emily to this guy, Dan, filled with words that felt like punches to the gut. I miss you. Can't wait to see you. Last night was a dream. Every single one a betrayal. Every word another crack in the life I thought I had. The dates, they lined up perfectly with a time I remember all too well. 11 years ago, I was laid up with a bad fall from a site, the kind of injury that has you staring at the ceiling for weeks. It was Emily who played the devoted fiancée, bringing me meals and managing my meds. Or so I thought. Now I'm seeing it was also Emily who was sneaking off to play house with some guy while I was whacked out on painkillers. I sat there on our bed, this phone in my hand feeling like a live grenade. My head was spinning, disbelief, anger, and yeah, that sting of betrayal that sears your insides like a branding iron. Emily, the woman I shared my bed, my life, my kids with, sneaking around like a character from one of those trashy soap operas she hates. I wanted to storm down the stairs, confront her with her little love notes to Dan and watch her face for any flicker of guilt. But that's not me. I'm not the confrontation on a whim kind of guy. I needed to know everything first, have all my ducks in a row. Because when I bring the hammer down, I want it to be with the full force of the truth behind it. So, I'm playing the long game. I locked those messages in my head and that phone back in my tool chest. Emily, she's acting normal, like any other day. She's got no idea that I know, and I'm keeping it that way for now. But every smile, every peck on the cheek, feels like a lie now. I need to dig deeper, make sure I have the whole picture before I blow up our lives. If I'm pulling the house down, I'm going to be damn sure I know why I'm doing it. I'll let you know what I find, Reddit, because right now, it's all I've got. All right, Reddit, it's Mike here, clocking back in with an update. If you've ever thought life could be as tangled as the cords behind your TV, then welcome to the club. The past few days have been like living in a detective show, except I'm the guy piecing together his own case of domestic heartbreak. With the stealth of a cat, I started combing through the history of us. I went down to the basement, where we keep all our old planners. You know Emily, being a teacher, she's meticulous about keeping records. So, I dug out the one from 11 years ago, dusted it off, and what I found was a map to the past. Days she said she was working late, business trips, and those mandatory team-building weekends. I cross-checked dates with the messages, and guess what? It was like fitting pieces into a puzzle, a really sad, pathetic puzzle. Then, there was the social media archaeology dig. I jumped onto the old Facebook account I haven't used in years, scrolling way back to simpler times, or so I thought. There were pictures, Emily and this Dan guy, always side by side at work events, always tagged together. Great job, team. Couldn't have done it without you, Dan. It was all right there in the open, and I was too blind to see it. The more I found, the more meticulous I got with my documentation. Screenshots, printed emails I found saved on an old hard drive, receipts for dinners out that I thought were for client meetings. It was like I was building a case for a jury, except the only juror was me, and my verdict was already pretty much decided. All this time, I'm putting on the Oscar-worthy performance of the unsuspecting husband. I kept it normal, the goodnight kisses, the how was your day, banter. It was eating me up inside though. Every smile from her was like a twist of the knife, but I couldn't let on. I've got to keep the act up for the kids too. They don't deserve to get dragged into this mess. Dan, this guy, turns out he left Ohio a few years back, moved on to some tech job in California, a whole new life. I even found his LinkedIn profile. Great at building professional and personal relationships. Yeah, a real charmer. So there you have it, Reddit. The case of Mike versus the ghost of infidelity past. All evidence points to a guilty verdict. What's left now is the confrontation. But it's gotta be more than just a showdown. It's got to be the final act of a play that's been running for too long. I need to plan it out perfectly, down to the last word. Because when I do this, when I finally confront Emily, I want to see the truth in her eyes without a shadow of doubt. I'll make sure to update you all when the curtain rises. Thanks for following, guys. It means more than you know. Hey Reddit, Mike here again. This story's turning out to be longer than one of those never-ending drama series, huh? But every story needs its climax, and mine's just around the corner. I've decided it's going down on our anniversary. That's right. The day that was supposed to celebrate our union is going to be D-Day. There's a cruel irony in it, but it feels fitting. The same day I asked her to be mine forever is the day I'm going to lay all the cards on the table. Now, you don't just walk into a hurricane without bracing yourself. So I've been steeling my heart for what's coming. It's been like living in a house of mirrors, every reflection showing a happy family. But I know too well that some of those images are nothing but illusions. The pain of keeping up the act is a constant burn. It's there when I wake up and kiss Emily good morning. It's there when we sit down for dinner and chat about what the kids did at school. And it's there when I turn off the lights and pretend I'm falling asleep next to a woman I trust. My jaw's been clenched so tight, I'm surprised I haven't cracked a tooth. But here's the deal. I'm not going into this blind. I've got a plan. I've scripted the questions, rehearsed them in my head and in front of the bathroom mirror. The words feel like lead on my tongue, but they're ready to be fired when the moment comes. I'm going to take her out to dinner, the same place we celebrated getting engaged. It's always been our spot. I'll let the evening settle, let her sip her favorite wine, and then I'll ask her about the past. Not like I'm curious, but like I know something's off. And when she realizes I'm not just making conversation, I'll show her the proof. I want to see her face, watch her eyes, and know what she's really feeling. Is there guilt, remorse? I need to see it, raw and unfiltered. The conversation in my head goes 100 different ways, but every time it ends with me walking away from the table. So, that's the plan, Reddit. As for the emotional prep, well, let's just say it's a work in progress. Every morning I have to swallow the bitterness, and every night I have to drown out the anger with a couple of beers. It's tough, not letting the rage or the hurt slip through the cracks. But this charade is necessary for just a little while longer. I'll update you all after. Whether it's the end of an era or the start of a new chapter, you guys will be the first to know. Hey Reddit, Mike here. It's been a minute since my last update, and oh boy, do I have a story for you. Our anniversary. That was the night I decided would be the grand finale of this tragic play. We went to our spot, the little Italian place downtown where I'd gotten down on one knee all those years ago. The same table, the same dim lighting casting golden halos around the room, the same old waiter with his lopsided grin. It was supposed to be romantic, celebrating a decade and a year of marriage. Emily was all smiles, dolled up in her favorite dress, the one that made her eyes look like the ocean. And there I was, a storm brewing behind my forced smiles. We ate, she talked, I nodded. The dance of normalcy was excruciating, each course a step closer to D-Day. With every bite, I felt like I was swallowing down the anger. The wine was bitter on my tongue. Finally, we got home. The babysitter left, the kids were already in bed, and that's when I turned from loving husband to the man with a mission. I didn't even let her settle, didn't offer coffee or the comfort of the couch. I laid it out, the old phone, the messages, the pictures, like cards on the table. At first, she laughed it off, a nervous chuckle that didn't quite reach her eyes. She tried to say it was a joke, a silly thing from the past, but her voice was as shaky as a leaf in a storm. Then came the hard proof, the dates, the details I had meticulously gathered. The laughter died. Her face went from pale to flush, a tide of realization washing over her. And then, the dam broke. The tears, the sobbing, the "I'm so sorries." But here's the thing, Reddit. I felt nothing. No sympathy for those crocodile tears, no warmth in the coldness spreading inside me. My voice was like steel when I told her it was over. She pleaded, she promised it was a mistake, a thing of the past, but it was too little, too late. I told her I'd be sleeping in the guest room until we figured out what to do with the house, the kids, the broken shards of our life together. She cried herself to sleep on the sofa, and I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of a room I barely recognized. So the dust has settled a bit since the night of revelations. And by settled, I mean it's like the quiet after a bomb's gone off. In the aftermath, there's been a lot of debris, emotions, memories, the bits and pieces of a life I thought I knew. I sat Emily down the day after. It wasn't a negotiation, it was a declaration. I told her I wanted a divorce, no second chances, no couples therapy. The trust was shattered, and I'm not the kind of guy who tries to piece together a broken mirror. She cried. Sure, she said sorry 1,000 times, maybe more. But my course was set. The kids, man, telling the kids was the hardest part. I sat them down, looked into their confused little faces, and explained that sometimes, even mommies and daddies need timeouts from each other, that we both loved them more than anything, and that wouldn't change, no matter where we slept at night. There were tears, questions I had tough answers for, and through it all, I had to keep it together for their sake. I called a family meeting too, told my parents, my sister, a few close friends. It was a mixed bag. Some were shocked, couldn't believe sweet Emily could do such a thing. Others, they just hugged me, said they had my back. My dad, he's a man of few words, just squeezed my shoulder and gave me that nod. That, you're doing the right thing nod. Emily's now looking for a new place. We agreed she would move out. It's better for the kids to stay in their home, keep some semblance of normalcy. We're hashing out the details of co-parenting. It's like walking a tightrope, but we're doing it. For the kids. The lawyers are in the picture now, drawing up the papers, splitting up the life I spent almost 15 years stitching together. It's cold, it's impersonal, but it's necessary. Like cutting away the damaged part of a building so the rest can still stand. I'm not looking back, Reddit. I've always been the guy who looks ahead, makes the decisions, and doesn't dwell on the what-ifs. I stand by my principles. Loyalty, honesty, and if you can't give me that, you're not getting a second chance. So, that's where I'm at. A single dad, soon to be divorced, standing on my own 2 feet and looking out for my kids. It's not going to be easy, but then again, I've never been one to shy away from the hard stuff. Thanks for sticking with me. I'll drop another update when the next shoe drops. What's up, Reddit? It's Mike, back for what feels like the final chapter of a saga I never wanted to star in. It's been several weeks since I last spilled my guts to the internet. I've read every single comment, taken every piece of advice, and I've got to say, it's made a difference. The kids and I, we're doing okay. Better than okay, some days. There's laughter in the house again, real laughter. We've had our moments, plenty of them. But we talk it out now. We deal with the emotions like a team. They're tough little cookies, my kids. I've found a kind of peace in the chaos. The divorce is almost finalized, and the future's looking different than I thought, but it's looking all right. I'm a full-time dad, and I've never been more committed to a job in my life. I'm baking cookies, and only burning like half of them. I'm at every soccer game cheering the loudest, and we've got this Friday night movie tradition, the kids pick, and I've seen enough animated movies to last a lifetime now. And yeah, I'm dipping my toes back in the dating pool. Not diving in head first or anything, but starting to think about the possibility of a new wife, a new partner in crime. Someone who gets that my kids will always come first and who shares the same core values. I'm cautious, you better believe it, but I'm also hopeful. So here's the kicker, the moral of the story, or whatever you want to call it. Trust, it's everything. Without it, you're building on quicksand. And the truth, no matter how ugly, no matter how brutal, it's worth facing. Lies, they eat away at everything like rust. They might not cause the collapse right away, but give it time, and down it all comes. I've learned a lot about myself, about what I can handle, and about what it really means to stand by your principles. I'm not the same guy I was when I started posting here. I'm a little wiser, a little tougher, and a lot more thankful for the honest people out there. Thanks for being a part of my story, Reddit, for the advice, the tough love, the virtual shoulder to lean on. Keep your eyes open, stand firm, and never settle for less than you deserve. This was Mike, signing off now. Thanks everyone for watching, and if you would subscribe to this channel, it would mean the world to me. Thanks to everyone that does, and enjoy the rest of your day or night.